I'm Kenneth Stringer with musiciansbio.com. I'm here today with artist Eternal Mortality. Can you tell us about the band, the members of the band?
Well, it was started by Cassie and me. We been through quite a few members. Ended up with a pretty good lineup, though, I think. Have a couple other guys that couldn't be with us today. They live quite a while away, so
sometimes when you're trying to find good talent, you do have to find people that are, who are totally committed to doing something on a professional level. You have to go outside your hometown.
Absolutely. We found some of the best people are 40, 50 miles away, and it's sometimes it's worth driving that. So.
Oh yeah. Well, for everybody here, this is Cassie Thaxton. This is Drew Collin. Now, who's the bass player?
Bass player is Paul Truesdale. He's a really good guy, really good friend.
Absolutely.
Great musician. Great musician.
And the drummer?
Drummer's name's Shallow Bloodworth. He's just now started playing with us.
Yeah.
Here in the last few months. I actually did a little bit of work with him in a band called Inviolate, one of our sister bands.
Yeah. Kadria, she's my girl.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, how did you come about picking your band name?
Well,
you need to answer that one.
Yeah, we've always been into the sort of ironic, oxymoronic names. Eternal Mortality was just kind of an offshoot of just kind of just seemed like, I don't know, it just had that.
It was
everything,
very intriguing.
Yeah, everything that we're trying to depict through our music, with the clash between the fantasy and the reality, and the eternal and the mortal.
Right.
Well, you know, I kind of looked at it and read it, and I'm like, you know, what does this mean? But y'all talking about it, we are mortals, and in this body form, we are eternal. At least the time of our lifespan, we're mortal. Eternal mortality.
Exactly.
And then at death, whatever happens, happens.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. And it almost sort of depicts the infinites of our mind and how it's boundless.
Yeah.
Boundless, but within this mortal flesh, you know.
Right. I mean, it's kind of like Stephen Hawking. I mean, he can't really move or do anything, but with his mind, he's able to go anywhere he wants to. Right.
Reaches.
It makes us continue to think about how we think and perceive, you know, science and how things work.
Exactly.
Kind of a question that I wondered about. You know, I got here, how did you form? But did the relationship start first between you guys, or the band, or?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story. She did a lot of theater in high school, and I actually came out to see one of her plays one time, and when I saw her sing and perform on stage, I was blown away. I was truly blown away, and at that point, I knew that she could be an amazing front person, and I kind of kept that with me, you know, through the whole formation of this, and she's really lived up to that expectation.
I believe there is a lot of theatrics in rock music. If you're playing to 100,000 people, if you're doing something real kind of little, they're not going to notice it. That's why a lot of arm swinging, leg kicking, and spinning around and running to the other end of the stage. You've got to really embrace the audience and keep them all going, you know, part of the music.
Yeah, being on stage.
I mean, you have to give that energy to get it back. You have to. If you stand up there, and believe me, I've had my fair share of shows where you look like a dummy on stage because you're not comfortable.
Right.
But once you give that energy, it's always given back to you.
It's always reciprocated.
Well,
yes.
From my experience playing music with people, everything changes. You're used to being in a certain room with a certain sound, and then you take all that equipment, move it to a whole different area with a whole different set of acoustics, and then if you got a good crowd, or you know, just they're there to drink beer that night or whatever, depending on what you're playing, of course.
Yeah, you're definitely out of your comfort zone.
Right.
That's for sure.
And then they're there to give your best to get noticed, even if it's just two people to buy a CD or a shirt or something. If they tell two friends and they tell two friends. Kind of reminds me of what David Lee Roth said one time. He says, go out and buy a record. If you like it, tell a friend. If you don't, tell an enemy.
There
You know,
go.
so either way, he was selling a CD.
That's
you know.
brilliant.
Wow.
That's brilliant.
What made you decide to do the genres? Because in your case, I know you do some acoustic stuff,
Yep.
and you also, you know, do progressive metal.
Wow. Well, for me, he really influenced me as far as metal's concerned. I was not at all familiar with metal till he came along, and he introduced me to it, and it was like, wow, this stuff is awesome.
Whole new world.
It was a whole new world, and you know, I don't know, it's like Aladdin. I was discovering new things, you know.
Yeah, we've always kind of done the acoustic stuff too, just because it goes well with anything, anywhere,
And we grew
for
up
any
on
audience.
that. That's what we grew
Yeah,
up on, and it's part of our roots, you know.
Yeah, and we kind of just do what we feel. You know.
I think metal opens up topics that, you know, you couldn't sing about in country music, or maybe you might could in some realms of jazz, you know, a little experimental jazz, but you know, heavy metal really opens up the door for it. No topic's probably taboo.
Yeah,
it's
and that's
hard,
the thing for me. I like to go deep into what I'm feeling, and with the modern music, you know, it's mostly about, you know, the surface stuff. And with me, metal just takes you to that place where, you know, you can relate on such a level that you can't get from any other kind of music.
And I think the underground scene kind of allows you to explore areas that you may not want to explore in mainstream music.
I think sometimes when bands get signed, the record company says,
Yeah.
well, we're not going to touch that.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, brings to mind Get Your Gun by Marilyn Manson. That probably wouldn't be a popular song right now, but in its day, it probably was.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
or it was different, for sure, you know. It
Yeah.
got somebody's attention.
Right.
When and why did you start playing? And I know a little bit about why you started.
You know, my whole family is just music oriented, and guitarists just running the family. So there was always a guitar sitting over in the corner at my dad's house, and I'd pick it up and pick around a little bit on it.
And
So.
I know your dad, and he played slide tunings a lot because he actually taught me to play slide. The guitar's tuned open, so you just strumming it, it was making a proper chord.
Exactly.
So I'm pretty sure at one point you take one finger and made another chord.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly. That's kind of where it started. Yeah. It was great having other musicians in the family who could sort of guide me, and people like you, mentors, who could just sort of guide me along. Actually, you introduced me to the metal.
Well, the biggest thing I remember telling you is that you were playing with your fingers, and you was doing at it trying to go pretty fast, and I said, Drew, if you're going to play this kind of music, you got to get a pick, man. And the next time I seen Drew, which was, it was a good little ways away, he was playing Master of Puppets, and it was like, I can't play that. I would play something like it, but not just like it.
I was obsessed.
So, and I think I did recommend Guitar World to you about the tablature. I said you don't have to know how to read music, you just need to read.
Yeah, you did introduce me to tablature, and that's when things kind of skyrocketed. I guess I was about 14 when I started actually just really indulging in this stuff. And
you were in the woodshed, chopping away.
Yeah, exactly.
What was the first tune you learned? Maybe a complete song or something.
You know, my dad taught me, of course, some Led Zeppelin. That was his favorite band. I want to say one of the first ones I remember learning, I guess I was probably about 8 at the time, which was crazy. I barely knew a chord, but he taught me this song called Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You by Led Zeppelin. So that was a tough challenge. I remember sitting up all night trying to learn this song, and he said, you're not going to bed until you learn this. It was probably like 10 o'clock, and it felt like all night to me. But I learned the gist of that song. Of course, it didn't sound anything like it, but
probably what he, I don't know, knowing Dwayne, but he knew if he told you something like that, and all it takes is one success to build on another.
Right.
Yeah.
Me, I learned pieces of songs, and if I could recommend to anybody, it doesn't matter if you're playing Hank Williams Sr., or a John Cougar Mellencamp, or Led Zeppelin. If you can learn a whole song through and through with the chords, that's a good beginning, because you're learning about writing and how songs are put together.
Exactly. You're getting into that person's mind, that musician, that artist's mind, and kind of working your way through it, and then coming out with a whole new skill set.
Right. I think it goes, wow, I just learned a Led Zeppelin song. If they, you know, you think they're, you know, godlike,
You
know.
do.
But when you learn it, well, of course, when you go through their whole library, of course they're godlike, right?
Yes. And it was a lot different back then too. They did seem godlike. Nowadays, it's not the same. You don't have those godlike entities now. You can just, you know, you're on Facebook. You're in their
sure your
personal
dad knew,
lives.
but a lot of people don't know. They, you know, called Jimmy's Army of Guitars. It wasn't just one guitar. He would use different guitars for different parts, and they might be 20 guitar tracks. He built it to sound like one guitar, but it was about they achieved what they wanted with the sound, and they were all very good at what they were doing together. That's a good. The sum of the parts are greater, you know, together than separate. You know, they're still talented on their own, but together there's just that one Led Zeppelin. What is your fondest musical memories in your home or in your neighborhood?
Well, I grew up in a family that was musical as well, and this is kind of funny, but my dad, I used to hate when he would play the guitar because he would ignore me, and I was, you know, always annoyed when he would pick up the guitar because it's like he's not gonna listen to me, because I would be like, Dad, and he'd be, you know, just getting down with it and not even paying attention to me. So that would annoy me. Okay, but then I was like, I'm never gonna date someone who plays guitar, and I ate my words on that one.
Right.
But that's a fond memory, I guess, because I look back on it and I'm like, okay, it's funny, it's cute. And my grandparents had a piano, so that was a fond memory of mine. I would sit down and work and learn church hymns with my grandmother. She would teach me like the Old Rugged Cross, Amazing Grace, stuff like that. So that was another memory. And my mom, she loved to sing, so we would sing songs together in the car. So those are just some fun memories.
So, kind of not knowing you're training yourself, it's natural.
No, I did. Yeah, and it's so funny because you look back and you're like, wow, you know, even just being around someone who was playing music at the time, it really had an influence on your brain. It really trains your brain.
You're subconsciously building, you know.
Yeah.
You know,
you're learning, like, you know, integrals and things you don't even
kind of like sing out of tune, be out of tune. But if you're singing in tune, you're probably you're on your way to doing well with it.
Absolutely.
Drew?
Oh wow, so many fond memories, especially in this place. This is like the music place. Got a lot of kids in the neighborhood who play music. They like to come over here and kind of jam around a little bit. Some of them are very, very talented musicians.
Yes, young, and you're like, wow, you're young and you're so good.
Seeing these kids coming up kind of reminds me and takes me back to some of these, but when I was coming up and just picking around and trying to find my place in the music world, and it's just a really good experience getting to watch the kids.
I'm sure you don't mind me
music.
saying here that you're a good example for them, because you graduated high school, you went to college and graduated college, you know, you got a full-time job and you're pursuing this as a possible career.
Oh, absolutely.
And, you know, a lot of kids now don't really have that role model that's positive, you know.
And that's so heartbreaking. And, you know, that's one thing that we've talked about amongst ourselves, is like how these kids come here to us and, you know, they don't have the best home life, and, you know, they fall into trouble in school and things like that. And music is their outlet. That's what they run to. And they come here to escape whatever and to play music. And it's like, that's what music is. It's a connection for us. It's a connection to other people. And you know, just to experience that with people young, I mean, it's heartbreaking, but it's so inspiring at the same time.